Hi, ladies, and welcome back for another week of the Summer Book Club 2018. We're on Chapter 5, Earning Trust and Gaining Freedom. Who doesn't want a little more freedom in their lives? It's one of the number one things I hear from girls, that they wish their parents trusted them more. And as I thought through what that looks like in a healthy relationship with a girl and her parents, I realized, wow, growing up, that is a natural part of getting older and transitioning from being under your parents' authority to being your own person. And that's good and right, but sometimes it gets a little tricky when you want freedom faster than your parents are ready to give it. And it also gets a little tricky when we have sin in the mix and our own developing judgment, where we're learning to make wise choices on our own without our parents' involvement. So sometimes there's just a little bit of a tug of war of us wanting more than our parents are willing to give. But one important factor to remember is that there will always be, in every important relationship that you have in your life, there will always be something called limited freedom. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, because it did to me too, a word that seems to contradict itself. Limited freedom simply means giving up or having taken from us some of our freedoms in order to maintain healthy boundaries in our lives and healthy decision making. So in some of our relationships, like with your parents or like a boss or even with God, an authority figure is going to limit your freedom, maybe without your consent, but that can still be a good thing because it helps maintain healthy boundaries and good decision making for you. In other relationships in life, even once you get all the freedom that you want when you leave your parents' house, you'll still have relationships in your life where you will voluntarily give up some of your freedom in order to maintain healthy boundaries and good decision making in your own life. And in this chapter, I give an example of my husband and I. We have a fantastic relationship and we trust each other exclusively. And yet we voluntarily give up some of our freedom in order to set healthy boundaries in our own lives, in our marriage, and so that we can make good choices and have that accountability. So we share passwords to our accounts and we don't make big decisions on buying things without consulting the other person. That doesn't mean we don't trust each other. It simply means we're human and we know that we're going to mess up and we need that accountability. So that's true in the relationship that you have with your parents too. God's given them authority over your life to help you make wise choices. I wish parents were perfect. They're not. But we can still trust that a good God will use even their imperfect decisions for your good and to make you more like Christ. So if the greatest good of family is to help us become more like Christ, how does that work with this whole idea of trust and freedom? And I think of Jesus in Philippians 2, where Paul talks about that Jesus voluntarily gave up his rights as God. He gave up that it says he did not consider equality with God something to cling to grasp onto. Instead, he voluntarily gave it up, taking on the form of a man, of a slave for us. Just like Christ, who's our example in everything, we too can voluntarily give up our rights in order to take the position of one who is still learning and who is still learning to make good choices in our lives. I share a couple of stories in the book of where my parents took away some of my freedom, but ultimately ended up freeing me to make better choices and save me from a whole lot of heartache. And so I would love to hear from you in the comment section today. Application question number 4. Have your parents ever told you that you couldn't go somewhere that you really wanted to go, and in the end, their decision kept you from getting hurt? So if you have an example like that, I would love for you to share it with us, with the group. Remember to keep some details private, just share enough for us to get the idea of it. And let's just laugh together and encourage each other to continue trusting that God has our parents in our lives for a reason. And if you haven't already read the chapter, I'd encourage you to do so. There's 6 tips for how to earn your parents' trust that I think you'll find helpful as well. In the meantime, I will see you next week for another chapter of this Summer Book Club. I'll see you then.